Hey guys, so today we're going to learn something called SOH CAH TOA. SOH CAH TOA. And this is just to help you remember, it's a little mnemonic. So what we've been working on. We've been working on right triangles this whole time. We did Pythagorean theorem, right, where it had two sides and it asked you to find the other one. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And then we did those special right triangles, the 30, 60, 90s and the 45, 45, 90s. But then you run into a situation where what if it isn't a 30, 60, 90 or a 45, 45? And what if you can't use Pythagorean theorem? So like this one, it's not a 30, 60, right? It's a 36. So it's not a 30, 60, 90. It's not a 45, 45. And I only have one side length, so I cannot use Pythagorean theorem. That's when you know to resort to SOH CAH TOA, okay, when you can't use all the other stuff. So what does it stand for? So sine, cosine, and tangent, sine, cosine, and tangent are functions. There's actually a button on a calculator. It says SIN-COS-TAN. You've probably seen them, but that's what they're standing for, sine, cosine, and tangent. So when you're setting it up, sine is opposite over hypotenuse. That's where the SO comes from, opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. That's where the CA comes from. And TOA is opposite over adjacent. Now this probably sounds like gibberish to you right now. So let's see what we're actually talking about. So if you're in a triangle, let's say we're talking about angle B. Let's say we're talking about angle B. Across from angle B would be opposite. So AC is opposite of angle B. And that's why it says side opposite of angle B. Hypotenuse is always across from your right angle, no matter what. This is always your hypotenuse. So if you're talking about angle B, across from it is opposite. And then the one right next door to it is your adjacent. So this is adjacent to angle B. It's way easier to just do it, okay? Way easier to just do it. So let's look at our picture. We're going to label the hypotenuse. So here's our right angle, travel across. There's our hypotenuse. Give it an H. Now, this is the angle they gave us, that 36. So you're going to travel across from the 36-degree angle, and we call that our opposite. So we're going to give it an O, which means this one is adjacent. So we always want to label your hypotenuse, your opposite, your adjacent first. Now, if you notice, adjacent, there's nothing here. I don't want it. They didn't give it to me. So I don't want to say you don't care about it, but you really don't. Here, I thought I would have a highlighter. It's not going to highlight. Okay, we'll go back to drawing. So here, you have a hypotenuse and you want an opposite. So if you're looking at SOH CAH TOA, it's really bad handwriting, I'm sorry. Which one is opposite and hypotenuse? Opposite and hypotenuse, you're using sine. So that's how you pick which one you're using. Do I use sine, cosine, or tangent? What do I have and what do I want to find? Opposite and hypotenuse, right? We don't care about the adjacent. We don't want it. We don't have it. Opposite and hypotenuse, I'm going to be using sine. So the way you set it up, sine of your angle, so in this case 36, equals opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite is x over hypotenuse is 8. So you want to get x alone, right? So this is divided by 8, which means to get rid of it, you're going to multiply both sides by 8. So you've got 8 times the sine of 36. And then over here, those will cancel, and you'll be left with x. Now what do I do with that? That's where a calculator comes in handy, and I did link one in the Google Classroom. Oops, I guess I should know what it is. 8 sine of 36. You're going to type it in just like that. 8 sine 36. Why is it doing this? And it'll actually evaluate for you, 4.7. 4.7. So we're going to come back. And x equals 4.7. Now make sure your answer makes sense. Your hypotenuse should always be your longest side. If you got a number bigger than 8, you probably messed up. Let's try another one. So this one, we're going to label our hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. So right angle, travel across, there's your hypotenuse. They gave us this 24-degree angle, travel across, that's your opposite, which leaves 4 as adjacent, right next door to it. So always label hypotenuse, opposite, and adjacent. Again, look at what you have. We have adjacent, right? They gave us that. And we want the hypotenuse. Adjacent and hypotenuse. Come back here, SOH CAH TOA, adjacent and hypotenuse. Adjacent and hypotenuse, I'm using cosine because you need adjacent and hypotenuse. Opposite, we don't have it, we don't want it, we don't really care about it right now. We care about adjacent and hypotenuse. That's how I know to use cosine. So cosine of your angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent over hypotenuse. Now notice this one, x in the denominator. X is in the denominator. So we're going to go ahead and multiply both sides by x. So we have x times the cosine of 24. Those will cancel. We're left with 4. And now we want to get x alone, so we're going to divide by that cosine of 24. So you have x equals 4 divided by cosine of 24. And we're going to go to our calculator and we're going to go ahead and type that in exactly as we see it, 4 divided by cosine of 24. So we're going to clear this out. 4 divided by cosine, what was it, 24? 24. Oops, why did it do that? Go back. 24, there we go. And we get, if we're rounding to the nearest tenth, we get 4.4, right? 7 tells me to round up, 4.4. So we're going to come back here, and we know x is about 4.4. Again, make sure it makes sense. So my hypotenuse has to be my longest side. Well, I have a 4. 4.4 is longer, so it makes sense. So I feel comfortable with that answer. All right, moving on. Let's try another one. Hypotenuse. All right, here's my angle. Travel across. That's your opposite, which leaves 5 as my adjacent. Again, focus on what you have. We have the adjacent and what you want. We want the opposite. Opposite and adjacent. Opposite and adjacent, we're using tangent. So tangent of my angle equals opposite over adjacent. Now I do have a little rhyme because either x is going to be in the numerator or it's going to be in the denominator. Just like these two cases. X was in the numerator, x was in the denominator. So you're going to do the same thing every time. So notice what we did in problem 1. The rhyme is if x is up high, so if it's in the numerator, if x is up high, you multiply. We multiplied both sides by 8. If x is up high, we multiply. So we're going to multiply both sides by 5. It's just a little rhyme to help you remember if x is up high, we multiply. And that's going to cancel. And we're going to go type it in our calculator. 5 tangent of 50. So we're going to clear this out. Clear this out. Why is it not clearing? 5 tangent of 50. And we get 5.9, but the 5 after it tells me to round up, so we're going to call it 6. So x equals 6. Okay. Now here, we don't have our hypotenuse, so how do I know if my answer makes sense? Well, you can use angles. Across from the larger angle should be the larger side. So you know a triangle is 180, minus 90 minus 50 leaves me with this angle has to be 40. So across from my 40-degree angle is a 5. 50 is bigger, so this side should be bigger, right? 50 is my bigger angle, so we knew that this number had to be bigger than 5, which 6 is. So you can still use it, it's just a little bit harder when you don't have the hypotenuse to reference. All right, one more and then you're on your own. So we're going to label hypotenuse. All right, here's my angle, travel across, opposite, and adjacent. And then ask yourself what you have. You have opposite, right? We had opposite with 7.2. And we want the hypotenuse. Opposite and hypotenuse, we're using sine. So we're going to say sine of my angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. Opposite over hypotenuse. So remember the rhyme was if x is up high, we multiply. If x is up high, we multiply. If x is down low, they switch, you know. And I know that's not the best rhyme, okay? But that's how I help remember it. If x is up high, we multiply, both sides by 5 in that case. If x is down low, they switch, you know. Because look what happened. Right here we had, let me see, we had cosine of 24 equals 4 over x. And after we did all of our math, we wound up with x, right? These switched. X equals 4 over cosine of 24. So if you can remember, they switch. X is going to come over here. 7.2 keeps its spot. And sine of 70 switches places. So if you want to remember the jingle, if x is up high, you multiply. If x is down low, they switch, you know. And we can type that right in, 7.2 divided by the sine of 70. So we're going to clear this out. I don't know why the clear button's not working. 7.2 divided by, I want to say it was sine of 70, but I could be wrong. 7.2 divided by sine of 70. And we get 7.6, and the 6 after it tells me to round up to 7.7. So we're going to say x equals 7.7-ish. And again, that's my hypotenuse. It should be my longest side. It's bigger than 7.2, so I feel good. I'm not going to submit a silly answer. All right, I hope that helps. Again, remember, SOH CAH TOA is to help you remember how to set it up. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. Go ahead and get to work on that worksheet. I expect to see a lot of work shown. If you just have answers, I'm not giving you credit. Bye, guys.